and we're dealing with a group that participates in hyper consumerism. So how do you then reel that in and say, okay, cool, we're going to have these women, these same women who are participating in hyper consumerism, who are participating in, blowing what they have and some, student loan debt, consumer loan debt, so on and so forth, evictions, bankruptcies, and so on and so forth. And we're going to reel them in so that we have a structure around money. How do we do that when they're so used to, for the past 50 or 60 years, doing it one way?
Okay, okay. And I want to answer this question. What is pro black? Okay, pro black is, of course, black people who believe that they want to be ahead of their community economically, education wise. Also, they want to economically uplift their community and service their own community. Um, we will get into more of the details in regards to how traditional pro black thought is, because it is my opinion, essentially, like you're saying, today's women are not necessarily following the traditional pro black uh, um, calling card or the role, because and like I said in a video, a lot of times when we talk about pro black, we talk about the institution of pro black, we talk about the organizations of pro black, and I think sometimes we forget the fact that a lot of these organizations paired with other organizations like the GLAD Foundation, or not GLAD, but the Gay and Lesbian Foundation, or the Gay and Lesbian Front, or
Are you saying LGBT?
yeah, yeah. Well,
Oh,
I'm trying to speak specifically to organizations.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because they're LGBT is an overarching kind of construct. Like saying women's empowerment is an overarching construct, but saying, single moms union, or black women
I get it.
union, is more specific. So I want to be specific. So being pro black, there was a time in which, you had civil rights. So being that you had civil rights, also women's union, women's empowerment stuff going on, the black power structure decided to prepare bond with those, because much like, say, Martin Luther King worked with the workers union,
Mhm.
you know Jesse Jackson and the Rainbow Coalition. These
Yeah.
were organizations that decided to kind of pair bond and to say, okay, we're going to both address the issue within our community because we overlap in certain areas.
Mhm.
However, I believe traditional pro black allowed the ball to slip by parent bonding with them too much. It became too much of a cozy deal. If do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Traditional pro blackness always was about the man providing, the man leading, the man protecting, and also the man being in charge of economically the community around himself. So I think, without getting too far about on that type of subject, I think that's kind of the idea that, where I hear pro black people, or people who are not necessarily understanding of pro blackness, I hear them say, okay, well, pro black people don't care about the man no more. And I'm like, well, you got to understand the context of how we kind of got there. The structure of it was kind of, and as men kind of left the institutions, then you had what's left, which is LGBT black women. You get your Brittany Coopers, you get your people. I even have this clip I was gonna do before this show about this white guy. He's in a Black Lives Matter face mask with a gay pride on the other side. And he's talking about how black nuclear families, or nuclear family, is a white supremacist idea.
Yeah, so like even with a lot of the stuff that you said, a lot of that, is infiltration,
Yes.
infiltration into the minds and the wants, the needs, the ideals of the women. And that, like, is the only thing that I think is really going to be a hurdle for most people. It's like, if the community is to survive, we have to have, I mean, I'm not saying better women, because I don't think the women are necessarily bad, but we have to have women that are on board. And
Yes.
you can't have women that are on board with it. It's probably not going to work, and you're probably going to have to get, better women,
Yeah.
ultimately. And yeah, but that's what I see our hurdle being. Because when you talk about, like, for example, I broke it down into money, family, marriage, and kids. Um, our women specifically, 60% of them do not have anything saved for retirement. And the debt to income ratio is astronomical, you know, and we're dealing with a group that participates in hyper consumerism. So how do you then reel that in and say, okay, cool, we're going to have these women, these same women who are participating in hyper consumerism, who are participating in, blowing what they have and some, student loan debt, consumer loan debt, so on and so forth, evictions, bankruptcies, and so on and so forth, and we're going to reel them in so that we have a structure around money. How do we do that when they're so used to, for the past 50 or 60 years, doing it one way? With family, mom, dad, you know what I mean? Like the marriages have not lasted. We've pretty much giving our women carte blanche over the kids, so they get to just whatever they want to with the kids. The courts, I know in my state, Michigan, if you have a kid out of wedlock with a woman, the court defaults to the woman having the kid.
Yeah.
And how do you override that? You know what I'm saying? If the women are so used to it happening one way. Marriage, again, 80% of the divorces are filed by the women. How do you then override that when they're so comfortable with leaving? And finally, the kids, of which I addressed that with the family. How do you override such a thing when they're deciding that, okay, I'm the best fit for the kid, and you know they just don't have any other way of thinking it out. They feel like they're the best parent, and they have everything that runs in their favor. Like, how do you override that? And I just don't think, even though, like I say, I think that the things that I wrote down, even when I got into, like, what should we do with money with regards to housing, investing, saying being out of debt, um, you know, having life insurance. I can get really specific on the money part, but you got to have the women aboard, because otherwise you're just doing it by yourself. So I just, like I say, I get it a lot of times, and people will agree with the bullet points, obviously. But if you have women on board, then it kind of doesn't. It's just words, and I don't think that that's going to happen with this iteration of strong, independent woman. Just don't see it happening anytime soon.